Sure.
This is the only
Good, I'll have to. Yeah.
Very well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for asking. It's gonna warm up, all the snow's gonna melt.
Will you let me know if I'm in your way?
Oh, you're not.
whatever you want. That's I need something. That's about searing consolidation.
I've been able to get a spot like
I gotta meet you downstairs. Right. What's the time clock? I talked to you.
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Okay, President, is that?
it's 8 minutes. Yeah, it's like 8 minutes.
What's this? E? Why? I'm good. Real quick. Two nominations? Who are your nominating? Who are your nominating?
You voting on Cypher today? Huh? Are you voting on Cypher today?
Yeah, I'll vote on it. We don't have to have a hearing, we can vote today. Go leave your feelings for it. Hamilton County, that's what it means. Count number? No. No. No.
No.
Oh, she worked for Quinn Morris, though. She can't be that. Do we like her, Chris?
I honestly don't know.
Andrew, you get this?
No, I don't.
Those guys.
I worked for Mike Morris, she worked for Quinn Morris.
Whose district is she in? Sorry.
I don't know.
And McNamara?
Yeah.
South Front Street. You. Where's the other one? What's the name on that? That's bugs.
Had a conversation.
Friday will be my last day. I'll go to the same.
Hello? Hello? Good morning. Appreciate it.
Computers? I never thought of it.
The name of this chamber.
They should, you've been here since it was built. Maybe say hi to Chris, I don't know. Maybe works with my law.
Hi, how do you do?
He's been here since John Adams presided.
Yeah.
The old and he was long, he was under King George, was George. That's what he named him after him.
Oh, Fred.
I can wait something up like that. It's good to have. That's why I was.
Hey, welcome back.
Right, you don't have to worry. And they fixed the roads.
They are now.
Getting rid of the bridge.
Anybody else is here?
What's happening now?
Anybody who wants some trail.
Councilor Iannella just stepped out.
Council Iannella. Is Joe?
Haven't seen him.
He said he was.
He's on his way.
Joe Ferrero.
I'm told.
All right, let us call our assembly to order. And I'd like to recognize Councilor Casey for leading us in the prayer and pledge.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. I'd ask for a moment of silence. And for all of our great men and women serving in the military.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I recognize Councilor Kennedy for a motion to record advice and consent for the financial warrant.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. And Councilor Iannella looks very rested and fresh. For a motion, motion to record advice and consent for the pending list of notaries, public and justices of the peace.
Thank you. I make a motion to approve the notary public and the justice of peace.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
And Councilor Jubinville, for a motion to record advice and consent for the appointment of Michael Vhay to the position of Associate Justice of the Land Court.
Second.
I second it, and I stand to say, he's so qualified. He did the old fashioned way, no politics. He's qualified.
Okay. All right, thank you, councilors. And we may begin the roll call.
Councilor Casey.
Yes.
Councilor Hill.
Yes.
Councilor Jubinville. Councilor Delaney.
Yes.
Councilor Iannella.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Motion.
We have,
Before you continue along with the rest of the agenda, I stand to speak. We have gone through 50 years of protocol that was not adhered to on Wednesday. And so I would have been standing here to say why we would have been voting today for attorney to be, and I would be making a statement why I voted no. So in lieu of that, I would make a statement now. Before I say why I voted no, I'm going to tell you that this Massachusetts Governor's Council will be in the Guinness Book of World Records. This council voted during a hearing last week for a nominee. And let me just say that, first of all, the proper protocol posted 50 continual years was not adhered to, in which the Governor's Council votes for a nominee the Wednesday following the nomination at a public assembly called by the Governor or the Lieutenant Governor. The vote by the Governor's Council for attorney to be took place during this hearing, still in progress, on February 8, 2017. As District Councilor Duff was presiding at last week's hearing for attorney to be February 8, she publicly stated she would adjourn the hearing at 5. I questioned why. We never said the time that we would adjourn. She didn't reply. While discussion was continuing, suddenly at 4:30, the Lieutenant Governor appeared. All discussion stopped in mid-sentence. Councilor Duff immediately announced that we would take a vote. There was no adjournment, by the way. Councilor Duff immediately announced that we would take a vote. Now, I want you to note, no councilor has the authority to call for a vote, but she did. The Lieutenant Governor then called on Councilor Duff. Councilor made the motion, Councilor Casey seconded, and Councilor Duff said, I demand a roll call. There were 5 councilors, Duff, Ferrara, Casey, Kennedy, and Hurley, voting yes, and Councilors Jubinville and Delaney voting no, 5-2. Why was this unethical action taken? Violating my right as a councilor and the people's right to know, to prevent us from getting answers to our questions. Was it because the district councilor disclosed outside the hearing that she would not be coming to the assembly on February 15th, and she wanted to be recorded voting for her constituent, Attorney Tabit, and especially representing Lawrence and Mayor there? Councilor Jubinville and I objected to the vote being taken at the hearing. This has never been done. Worse than that, a vote taken during an omnibus hearing. Only really when a sitting judge has requested a transfer from one court to another to move closer to home has the council voted after a hearing. Councilor Jubinville and myself had no knowledge of the secret, planned, unethical action. And to quote from the McCarthy era, having no sense of decency. Thinking back, I did notice that all councils remained, which is not usual. The newest council stated, "I'm ready to vote." And I thought, why? We won't take the vote until the next assembly on February 15th. Why is she saying that? Why is Councilor Duff going to adjourn at 5 p.m.? I noticed across the four councils kept looking at the clock. Now I know. The lieutenant governor was probably scheduled to come in at 5 when Councilor Duff said she was going to adjourn the hearing. The lieutenant governor arrived early, and at 4:35, we took a vote to put this person on the Superior Court. When her entry came, all this discussion was interrupted in mid-sentence. Councilor Duff, not adjourning the hearing. The unethical action was all done secretly, with the lieutenant governor involved. The texting is continual throughout all hearings, and councilors and the J&C ladies refuse to put away their cell phones despite my request at the hearings. Texting is the new form of the insider game. It has got to be the lowest level of manipulation of public process. When I left the chamber, after they voted, no adjournment, we just left, I saw all the councils in the hallway, all hugging Attorney Tabit and his family. The second hearing was for explanation. A lot of questions about Tabit's lack of disclosure to the council. This hearing should have been followed by allowing the public to respond. The public's right to know, and for the councilors to know, and to assimilate what they learned at that second hearing to ask questions of the nominee, J&C, or others. The public process was not followed, and this is scandalous. The historic reference. When I first asked Attorney Tabit why he didn't follow the instructions of the printed Governance Council questionnaire, asking him to send his witness list, who will testify at his hearing, along with the filled out questionnaire to the council. He told me, Sharon Casey told him the council doesn't need the list this early. Send it to me. I learned Sharon told the list until the last day of the day before the hearing and had her assistant Olga bring it to the council office. Sometimes the council office has to call Sharon to send it down. Attorney Tabit got nervous and reported to Sharon that I was not pleased with the action of sending the list to him rather than following our instructions, printed instructions. Why is she counseling him? The J&C job is done once the person is nominated. The question is now, when Sharon got this addendum on November 17, 2016, from Tabit, written in his own words, saying he had a complaint from the BBO, it was dismissed and it was frivolous. The council never saw that addendum until at his hearing, February 1st. When asked if he had any complaints from the BBO, he said he did. And Sharon Casey quickly left the chamber and returned with the November 17, 2016 addendum that he mailed her, but she neglected to send to the council. Further, he did not follow instructions on our questionnaire. When asked, is there anything favorable or unfavorable to the close? He had none. It isn't about the complaint. I want to make that clear. Lawyers get complaints all the time from disgruntled clients. It's about lack of disclosure. I met with Attorney Tabit for 4 hours, and he never told me about the complaint. think this is most important to know because it wasn't said in the press. At this second hearing, at the start of the hearing, I announced to Councilor Duff that there was a woman who came to testify. Councilor Duff said she would not be allowed to speak, that this was a continuation of the first hearing. I replied, this is a public hearing, everyone is allowed to speak. Last week, Attorney-to-be brought 4 people to testify for him, including his very close friend, Lawrence Mayor Rivera, who lobbied very hard for him. Now, an independent witness is denied to speak. I stated that this witness contacted Councilor Duff, asking the date of the first hearing, and Councilor Duff never responded. She saw it in the paper that there would be a second hearing, and she contacted Councilor Duff. She wanted to come and testify. Councilor Duff told her to just send a letter. This woman emailed all councilors. I replied, and I told her to come and testify to her right. I stated to Councilor Duff that this was the witness who she knew filed a complaint against Attorney-to-be. Only Councilor Jubinville stood with me and asking that this woman be allowed to speak. Councilor Duff refused. Throughout the hearing, this woman's name was bandied about, asking Attorney-to-be questions relating to her. She could not defend herself. She was not allowed to respond. She was not allowed to speak. I am ashamed of the disgrace brought to this position of governor's council, which I hold in high esteem. Yes, Councilor Jubinville and I shouted. To shout against injustice is right. Why I voted no. I take no joy in saying this nominee absolutely lacks experience in the Superior Court. Yet interesting, he only applied to the Superior Court. Why? He must have known this was a sure thing. He stated at the first hearing he had 1 civil and 1 criminal trial in Superior Court. Second hearing, he said he had 3. He said in his 21 years as a lawyer, he had about 8 cases in Superior Court. That would mean every 2.5 years, he would appear in Superior Court for 1 case. Regarding the addendum, according to the dictionary, addendum means added on. I never saw the complaint. Did he produce the original complaint to the JNC or to anyone? They simply accepted an addendum he created and recommended him to the governor. At the hearing, Tabit said, that's not my signature on the addendum. That's not my name. I didn't sign it. So many answers that we'll never get because they voted during the hearing. So who signed it? We don't know. So many questions left unanswered by the unethical actions taken by securing the vote for Tabit in the middle of a hearing. Half hour before we were told it was going to adjourn, and it was still going on. Discussion stopped. The vote for Attorney-to-be should be withdrawn. Why did I vote no? I take no joy in that Superior Court experience, and there are many, many lawyers who are so more qualified. Yes, Councilor Jubinville, and we will shout against injustice. Representing the people of Massachusetts who we represent. This will be the legacy of this council, and unfortunately, Lieutenant Governor. I am very sad that it brings, please stop smiling, Jim. I am very sad that it brings such shame to the most important elected body. We are the only body that are the checks and balances of government. Councilor Jubinville stated publicly.
I didn't catch that. I just want to make sure I understand.
Finish the statement.
Councilor Jubinville stated publicly, we have rubber stamp councilors. It breaks my heart. We have lowered the bar in approving so many unqualified nominees who the JNC approves. Thank God we do have some good nominees that somehow get through the mire, who I have proudly voted for and are on the bench. For all of those experienced, qualified men and women lawyers out there going to Superior Court with hundreds of cases and trials under their belt, who may have got an interview with the JNC, or they didn't, or rejected, I apologize. As I said at the hearing, this is a travesty of justice on all counts. If people knew all the facts about this appointment, And the unethical way this nominee was voted, with so many unanswered questions, a lack of transparency, I would understand why people would say the Governor's Council should be abolished. And that hurts to say. And Council Jubinville didn't know anything about this, nor the public. During the process of a hearing, we interrupted the hearing, came in, and you voted. Okay? So that's my statement. And I don't find any joy in saying this statement, but it has to be put, and this is going to be in the record of the Governor's Council, if anyone wants it, and if any people following in my chair should know what happened. It should never happen again. Nearly 50 years protocol, 50 years protocol of the council has a hearing, and then next Wednesday they meet, giving everybody time for the public process to ask questions that need to be asked. So I'm really sad about this. So I expect to be, attacked. Thank you.
Councilman Casey, you have something you want to say, and then Councilman.
Thank you. Just very briefly, the legacy of this council is a laughing stock, is a legacy that Councilor Delaney, in my opinion, you own. The lack of respect this body gets, whether it's the Boston Herald or the Boston Globe, or the State House News, or any other media forum, is a reputation that you have developed over a decade and a half as a member of this council.
Stop bullying me, and stop bullying a text from the 21st Amendment.
Point of order. And that is an absolute, utter lie that I was at the 21st Amendment. And you owe myself, Council Ferreira, and Council Kennedy an apology. With respect to the merits of this nominee, I want to stand and defend my Councilor Duff, and I would do that for any member of this council who is not here to defend herself and speak to the issue of why she called or requested a vote that evening. If you will recall, the first hearing on the nominee was February 1st. That was a 5+ hour hearing, and I believe the majority of councils were satisfied at that point with not only the nominee's qualifications, but also with the explanation that he gave with respect to a Board of Our Overseers complaint that was filed against him. Undisputably, after his JNC application was filed in 2015, the BBO complaint came in 2016, and as far as I know, I've been here for 6.5 years, that nominee absolutely followed protocol in updating his JNC application with an addendum to reflect that there had been a BBO complaint against him filed, and I believe it was for question 61 or 60 of his JNC application part 2. Absolutely in following protocol. I guess if you want to imagine boogeyman under the bed, that was an issue. For a practicing attorney and somebody who followed the facts and reviewed the materials, it was not an issue. And I know it was not an issue for a majority of this council. When somebody has a BBO complaint filed against them, it's very unusual that a BBO complaint is dismissed within a matter of months unless it's absolutely frivolous, which is what it turned out to be the case with Attorney Tabit. To require a second hearing, that is not accurate. I think the majority of the council was ready to vote for Attorney Tabit on February 8th, which would have been our standard procedure, although we have no rules. It would have been standard procedure to vote for him on February 8th. This hearing occurred on February 1st. And again, that was after 5.5 hours of vetting. Having said that, he was called back on February 8th by, I believe, 1 or 2 members of the council. I think that's an issue that we need to address moving forward, that if somebody wants a nominee to return, it should be a vote of a majority of the council to do that. You can imagine the disarray that could occur if a councilor, any one of us said, well, no, I want him to come back next week. So we need a rule on that, but the majority was ready to vote on February 8th. We did have an additional 3 to 4 hours of hearing on February 8th for Attorney Tabit. So this was a nominee who I would say had an extraordinarily long vetting period of 8.5 to 9.5 hours for a Superior Court position. I think he demonstrated in that time frame incredible temperament. He testified at this hearing that he had in excess of 10 Superior Court trials and numerous district court trials, and had handled civil and criminal matters. So for the majority of us, obviously by the vote of last week, his credentials were not an issue. With respect to the JNC and the way that they handled it, it's my understanding that the council was provided with a copy of that addendum, certainly well in advance of our vote on February 8th. If it had been scheduled on February 8th, it was given to us, I believe, 1:30-ish on February 1st. It was distributed to all members of the council. And having reviewed hundreds of JNC applications at this point, I believe that that addendum and that answer to that question was absolutely appropriate. There was nothing unusual about it, nothing remiss about it. It was completely appropriate. So what we have here is an attempt to make a mountain out of a molehill. This is a man who has high integrity, attorney-to-be. His family sat with for 9.5 hours. And the fact that after he was done with that 9.5 hours of vetting, and his mother, his 80-year-old parents were here, his mother was crying, his wife was crying. After the vote, they were very happy. I'm sure they felt like it had been more time. So that's the reference to the celebration. Councilor Devaney, you did come around the corner and see his mother weeping and his wife weeping, and me shaking the nominee's hand, and you proceeded to do some type of flippant dance, which I didn't think reflected particularly professionally on this body. So in fact, he was sworn in that evening. I was happy for him. I was happy for his family. And I just want to say there's absolutely nothing that was done that is unethical about that procedure and how the vote was taken. You might not agree with it, but it's another thing to start defaming people and their character because you don't agree with the way a vote was taken. That's not how adults should react. Thank you, Councilor Kennedy.
I have to stand in defense of the governor's office, which is in particular the staff of the JNC and Sharon Casey in particular. There was a clerical error made in this case where they failed to attach an addendum that was put in some 15 months after the original application. Mistakes happen. People make mistakes. It was not the nominee's mistake. He sent it in as he was instructed to do in a manner which I would think was completely appropriate. But a very minor mistake was made by the governor's staff, by the staff of the JNC, that led to this ridiculous situation. And I stand in defense of Sharon Casey in particular, because her name has been taken in vain by folks on this council because of what happened there and some other things. She's a very, very hardworking and dedicated state employee. We should be absolutely crediting her for her dedication and the hard work she puts into putting nominees through the JNC process. I think that it's disgraceful the manner in which her name has been taken in vain, as well as the staff, who frankly low-paid, very hard-working people. And I just can't let it stand and have their reputations and their name taken in vain. The problem we have in this body is that we have no rules. I've been saying it for the 6 years that I've been on here. The Constitution requires that we adopt rules, and I'm going to make a motion right now that we set up a committee to establish rules to prevent a situation like what happened last week. I frankly had left last week. I was on my way out the door and I got a text to come back that we were going to vote. I think other people were surprised by that. And I know the Lieutenant Governor, when she came in here, certainly did not expect what had occurred. I don't think she thought that there was anything going on. It's my understanding that Councilor Duff wanted to have the vote because we had a hearing the week before. There was a nominee in her district, and she was going to be on vacation this week. That's what I understood happened. It was nothing devious. It was nothing underhanded that was going on. It was simply a matter of a courtesy to another councilor, and that's why I waited, because I had things to do. We need rules. I'm making a motion right now that we set up a committee to adopt rules for when we vote, when we don't, because we don't have them.
Second.
Well, I will finish the floor talk before we get into a rule.
Wait. There's a motion, there's a second. Okay. What I'd like to do is have Councilor Hurley heard, because you were next recognized, and then we will entertain anyone else who would like to speak, and then we will take up the motion and the second for a vote today, and then we'll conclude. Here we go.
I am the newest member here. We all live our lives by rules. Whether it be rules of the road, criminal law, civil law, it doesn't matter. I am shocked and appalled by the treatment that Councilor Devaney has rained upon her fellow councilors that I don't even know that well. The treatment that she has given, the assertions that are false and without merit that she makes here boldly and without any basis. She makes the rules on her own. If there was ever a time that we needed civility and propriety, it's now. She gets up, she hasn't been here for 50 years. Nobody has. Yet when it's convenient for her, she takes it upon herself to make up the Devaney set of rules. It's inappropriate, it's not legal, and it's without the authority of the Constitution or this body. I have been here for a short period of time. Your treatment of people is disgraceful and outrageous. And I would go further to say that it appears to me that you have a bias against people like Saul Tabit. And I wonder why.
That's unacceptable.
Now,
Councilman.
it is time that we stood up to the terror that she has rained upon this council and the nominees that come before this body. The people that come here are looking for a fair shot at being a judge and being treated with dignity and respect. I left here last Wednesday and I got sick to my stomach because of the way she treats people. I will not tolerate it, and I will not tolerate her dictating to me how I can run meetings in my district to give my people that I represent an opportunity to be heard. And I'm saying from this day forth, I declare my Declaration of Independence from the burdensome actions of somebody who says, when it's convenient, this is the rule. And when I ask, well, what are the rules? There are none. All right? This is the definition of insanity. What are the rules? There are none. But this is a rule. Because somebody says it, I'm not going to tolerate this type of activity. And I am going to go and volunteer to be on that committee. Thank you.
Motion. Councilman Berman.
Thank you. I echo the sentiments of what the other three councilors that just previously spoke say. And I'm not going to go into detail, but I certainly agree with Councilor Kennedy that the JNC and Sharon Casey work extremely hard. We have incredibly dedicated professionals on the JNC that vet candidates and spend hours upon hours upon hours upon hours doing due diligence for free. They don't get paid. Unlike us, they don't get paid. But they do a terrific job. Sharon Casey, I know, works 70 hours a week. And I've seen Sharon Casey be the victim of Mr. Devaney's disrespect to the extent that I tell Sharon Casey all the time, I don't know how you do your job with that woman. I've seen her yell at her. I've seen her boss her around. She tries to boss me around. She tells people, she just told Councilor Casey not to smile. Who are you? Why do you think you rule this council? I want to also state that I think Councilor Devaney make up lies. Jan Horniman is a judge today, and she accused him of lying. She approached him in the corridors of the State House and yelled and screamed at him and told him that he was going to be told. That's true. And it was allegedly a story that she made up that I called Don Horniman and told him his meeting was going to be 1 hour. His hearing was going to be 1 hour. None of that was true.
Come on,
And then she went out and bullied him. You talk about being bullied, you bully everyone in the State House here. I've seen you, I've heard you, 2 weeks ago, you were with the Division of Professional Licensure. Did people have to come out and talk to you because of the way you were acting? What? Yes, they did. Division of Professional Licensure in the State House. There's like 100 witnesses talk about your behavior. You're yelling and screaming and carrying on a rant.
Oh no.
That is true.
This is a lie.
I would also like to say that it's about your behavior for the last 15 years on this council of embarrassment. And you talk about abolishment. If there were more council like you on this council, I would vote to abolish it. I would vote to abolish it.
Subject that happened with Attorney Tabit. That's on subject, not me.
I'm sorry. When people don't like what she doesn't like to hear, she wants to stop all the conversation. It doesn't work that way, Mr. Vhay. Sorry. The last thing I want to say is, I would like to reopen the vote, please, and ask you, I'd like to cast a approval vote for Michael Vhay. That's allowed in order to do it. I'm sorry I was a little late.
Let me take things in order. We have a motion. No, is there a motion?
Well, I was in the courthouses since last Wednesday, and people commented on what happened here last Wednesday. Different people said to me, Bob, it looks like an old-fashioned bag job. And I didn't know what to say other than, you're absolutely right. That's what it was. So you may pick on Councilor Delaney, and you may criticize her, but she's no rubber stamp like you are, or like Councilor Kennedy is, or like Councilor Casey is. So when I look at people say we need rules because of last week, this fiasco was caused because a councilor and 5 others secretly had a little scheme and plot that they were going to cast a vote without telling the other 3 councilors. That's what caused it. Rules don't stop that. Good, fair decency stops that. Respect for your fellow councilors stops that. Respect for the governor's council stops that. Respect for the nominee who was sitting here and hearing all of this in his presence. And Lieutenant Governor, I know, I'm convinced you walked through that door not knowing what you were walking into. I would tell that. I'd ask you not to do such a thing or be lulled into it. We have had a procedure here since I've been here for, I think, more than 50 years, that councilors had hearings. After the hearing, a week went by and the vote was taken. This was no different. This hearing was continued at not only the acquiescence of Councilor Duff, with the encouragement of Councilor Duff, to get the material that we hadn't been given into our possession so we could ask the nominee about it. It was a continuation of a hearing. That's all it was. We had 3 hearings for the Chief Judge Gantz. Nobody said after the first one, well, this hearing's over, we're going to have a vote. As I look procedurally, I see the governor is the only one that can call us into session. The lieutenant governor can't do that. Councilors can't do that. And a vote is taken in session. It's done that way so it can be put on a website. Notice can be given to people that we're going to have a vote. You don't do it in secrecy at 5 o'clock or 4:30 by banging a gavel and saying, I'm calling on a vote. Then you get what you got because of that reason. It wasn't rules that would have saved us. It was decency and courteousness to the councilors and council that would have done it. So I hear a lot of great talk from councilors here. Councilors who don't have the courage to vote no. One councilor's never voted no since Baker's been here. Another one hasn't voted no in the entire history of the governor's council. Unbelievable. 3 more votes, I'm going to recommend them for the John F. Kennedy Courage and Profiles Award. Your Honor, this to me, when people say to me, I was sick to my stomach, I don't blame them. But it wasn't rules that caused it. It was what was done by councilors in this chamber. What was done? You told me you found out about it when you got back from lunch. No. Okay.
If we can, I want to, Council Ionella and then Council
just-
then we're going to act on the motion.
Okay. Well, you can do, I'm going to tell you right now, you can whatever motion you want. The only rules I follow is this one. When I get up to speak, nobody's stopping me. I'll tell you that much right now. So this nominee, in my opinion, it wasn't about the Bar Association. It turned out to be nothing. If he had put it in his filings, had it in his notebook, which he had everything else, it wouldn't have been an issue. He made it an issue by not declaring it. Then he had a different story when he came back. He did it because he was going to meet with the governor. He wanted to make sure the governor knew about it. He had thin credentials for the Superior Court. He had 8 trials that he did his entire 21 years. 1 in the last 5 years criminal. But the other part of the fellow was an answer to INL's question about how a case came out. He said, well, what do you mean? I was a lawyer. That is an arrogant answer. They asked him aloud and said, he was just kidding. This isn't the place to kid. This isn't the deal. He was arrogant in his answers. He was arrogant in his comments on his cases. If you put it into the application, it was all about him. I convinced the judge to do this. My cross-examination was eloquent in saying the case. Arrogance is the worst quality of a nominee. It never gets better with the road, it only gets worse. So that's why I voted no, but I also voted no because I didn't like it ran down my throat at 5 o'clock. And that was frustrating.
Council Iannella, and Council Burr.
Thank you. Where do I start? Really, really disappointed. We can do better. And we have to do better. This cannot continue. I've been here a long time. We can't go after council like this ever again. It's a new law. We can't do it. It's not the way we conduct business. This wouldn't happen in the House of Representatives, State Senate, Congress, United States Senate. This can't happen. We're better than that. I have never heard this type of conversation before, criticizing people. It is crazy. It's a circus, and it's got to stop. The temperature's got to be lower. We can't continue this. We have to do better, and we got to do better now. Enough is enough. And with respect to the rules, with all due respect to the rules, other than the newer people, most of the councilors in this room didn't want rules. That's in the record. Most of the councilors who've been here 6 or more years didn't want rules. So I was an advocate of rules. I asked people if they wanted to meet in my office about rules. Some showed up, most of them didn't. So I'm just telling you, that's why we don't have rules. But again, starting today, can we all do a better job? We can't criticize the council.
Thank you, Council. Council Burr, briefly, and then we're going to take Council Kennedy's motion, which has been seconded, and we're concluding the assembly today.
Sure, just for the record, I didn't say this earlier, I'm on a tangent, but Council Duff did ask me minutes before the vote, so she wasn't going to be here unethically if not, I would vote that day. Because we had the meeting the week before, I agree. Council Jubinville just says, people should be sick to their stomach. You don't make me sick to my stomach, Bob.
Thanks for informing me, Terry.
When you ask me,
Thanks for informing me.
this makes me sick to my stomach. When you ask me to vote against a nominee to send a message to the governor, that makes me sick to my stomach. I was voted in office by 750,000 constituents that I have. And you're not one of them, and Ms. Duff and Ms. Delaney's not one of them.
You're a post leader.
No, but let me finish. You can say your mouth up, but you know what I'm never gonna do? What you did.
Understand.
Okay. What you did is you voted against the nominee, you called the nominee within an hour. You called him within an hour, and you said you're gonna be a great judge. I wouldn't vote for you, but I need my votes. You did that. You called the nominee after you voted out, you told him you're gonna be a wonderful judge. You did.
There is a motion to establish a committee. It's been seconded. I would begin the roll call vote. Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Yes.
Council Kennedy. Yes.
Councilor Ferraro.
Yes.
Councilor Jubinville.
No.
Councilor Devaney.
I think that we have I just want to say that.
No, we are Councilwoman
Council Jubinville and I would each
Councilor Iannella.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy's already voted. The motion.
Final,
I would volunteer to be on that committee.
We're volunteering.
I think we should all be on the committee.
That's fine. Okay, I volunteer
just
together
to
with
clarify the
host.
record for the motion to report a roll call vote from Michael Vhay and ask the council to include in that.
Thank you.
Well, wait a minute, Your Honor. We have had a rule here, that if you're not here for the vote, you can't vote.
Jenny, George Bode told me that you can be.
That hasn't been the rule.
To the meeting has not adjourned yet. Maybe if the meeting will adjourn, this meeting is still in session.
Can I, the motion the vote relative to Michael Vhay is reopened to allow council prayer to report its government. George, would you call?
Yes, thank you.
47.
47. Proud of it.
There are two nominations. Claudine Meyer, she has been nominated to the Hampton County Division of the Probate and Family Court. I believe Councilor Curley will be scheduling that hearing when you are ready. There's also a nomination of Ann McNamara to the Industrial Tax Board of the Department of Industrial Taxes. That's also a nomination that's been made in the last month's schedule. That will conclude our vote today.
The meeting would be scheduled for the first one available, which I understand is with the Supreme Court Justice, and March 1st or 2nd. So then it would be March 8th. And that meeting will take place at 10 o'clock. March 8th. Thank you very much. CICT plan.
And you know what? You're right. Wait, you get all that?
You guys were-
And it is